good afternoon, good evening, or whatever time you're listening or watching this video. Welcome to another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. My name is Edson Ochoa, and I am really excited to be back here to talk about RGV FC, their last game that happened last Friday. I know there was a little bit that we kind of touched up upon, Jacob and I, after the post-game press conferences. We want to kind of analyze it a little bit more today, kind of give our predictions about the upcoming match against San Diego Loyal on the road. And I know you guys are probably itching to give some of your hot takes from Friday's game, your opinions. As always, they are welcome here in the YouTube chat. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, or you give your hot takes, you're more than welcome to mention it here in the chat, whether it's on YouTube, Twitch, or on Facebook Live. Having said all of this, let's go ahead and give a huge welcome to our good friend and co-host, Jacob Young. Jacob, how you doing?
Oh, doing fantastic. Looking forward to talking some more soccer. Talking about the Toros. It should be a very fun show. A lot to get into, of course, and should be a very fun show considering how it went on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was a lot of negative feedback after the game on Sunday on social media. A lot of I think a lot of people were kind of taken by surprise. You know, just the fact how we ended up dropping 2 points.
Yeah.
First, they were surprised how well the team played against New Mexico. And also, obviously, the stoppage time. We'll obviously go into all of that. Yeah. But right off the top of the bat, I feel like I really wasn't expecting much out of. I really wasn't expecting much out of New Mexico. And I think I said it in last week's episode when I gave my prediction. I said, I think offensively. Offensively, they're okay, but on the road they've been terrible, and defensively they're a little bit worse than RGV has been, So, but I really did not expect the Toros to play as well as they did. We always talk about RGV and Wilmer's love for the high press. We saw all of that. We saw a little bit more crisper passing between the attackers. I really want to think that Wilmer has finally found a tactical lineup that benefits most, if not all, of the players that are starting. Yep. Now we're starting to see a base like, okay, Ricky's going to be out on the right like he was last season. You're going to have Cristiano Francois as your false nine or as an actual striker. And then you're going to have, Robert Coronado play out on the left. Right. Instead of him being kind of like that running the outside back going up and down, Robert's going to stay a little bit higher up, and you've got Davila with a little bit more of the offensive oriented what's the word I'm looking for, responsibility to try to help distribute the ball to any of these front three. Right. That's starting to gel. You're starting to see, obviously, Wilmer Jr. Coming off from the bench, where I feel he has a chance to shine because you catch the defense tired, and you see where he's a little bit more of a flamboyant style, the step overs, the feints, and all of that, and obviously fatigue, messes up a defender's reaction time, right? So when you're tired, your brain reacts slower than when you're, fresh, right? And so a player like that coming off of the bench, let's say in the 70th, 75th minute, really helps with that. And I think that's kind of what Wilmer has on his mind when he brings in Wilmer Cabrera Jr., which he came in actually in the 64th minute. Right, so you gave him 30 plus minutes, or well, actually almost close to 30 minutes, considering counting the stoppage time. To try to see if we can do something with in the attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wilmer did a really good job there. Being able to Wilmer Cabrera and Junior. Wilmer Cabrera, subbing at the right time for in the regular 90 minutes, giving Wilmer Cabrera Jr. 30 minutes to see what he could do. He is, especially now that we've seen him improve game after game after game, a player that I enjoy to see come off the bench. I'd enjoy to see him not necessarily start, but come off the bench and be that almost super sub, like the Borjak type.
Mm-hmm.
Still kind of upset that Borjak left to RGV FC, but right now he's not needed, which is awesome. But it brings a good amount of he brings a good amount of energy onto the field, and that's perfect. Wilmer Cabrera had that perfect style of play on Friday night with just being aggressive. And that's what you want to see from this team, having those shots on target, having shots in general, whether or not they were on target or not, and better passes, just like you said. And it shows how much this team has grown and has found this gel that's very, very important. And is why later on in the show, I'm going to debunk two people's opinions about this game.
Oh, I can't wait. Once once you go into rant mode, it gets fun. But one of the things that I wanted to, because I know a couple of people mentioned it to me, and I refuse to give myself or give us the credit about it, because I had a couple of people actually tweet at me or actually send me a direct message on Instagram and on Twitter and said something along the lines, "Oh, you guys lit a fire underneath the players."
Meh.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean,
Yep.
honestly, I just feel like the message from Wilmer Cabrera is starting to gel in their minds of knowing exactly how they should play. I think the only question, not necessarily because Robert's been doing it terribly, but the fact of the matter is, it's just that Robert, he's not really a true winger, right? But you get the idea of what's happening in the future. You bring it once Christian Pinzon gets completely healed, he gets at 100% of his play level. He's going to be the starter, and then it's going to be Wilmer Jr.'s responsibility coming off of the bench to continue to revolutionize what Christian Pinzon had left off if he does get substituted in for Pinzon. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of helps out in that way. It kind of prepares Wilmer Jr. to, obviously, I think somebody mentioned in previous episodes that maybe Wilmer needed to be benched, right, to clear his head, to be able to get a fresh start, relieve some of that pressure that he kind of feel the responsibility of, oh, I'm the starter and I have to do everything right. Now he's lost the position, right, and so now it's more of the lines of, okay, now my responsibility is I need to, when I go in on the field, I need to take advantage of this opportunity. And obviously that also leads him, prepares him in the future in the case of, let's say that, Christian Pinzon comes back from his injury, lights out, right? And he's ready to be a starter. And, well, you're going to have to substitute Wilmer Jr. from the starting 11, right? Mm-hmm. And so what better way to kind of help him prepare for that kind of mentality of, instead of it bringing him down, because it's like, well, you had me all the season playing, and now all of a sudden he's coming back and I'm on the bench, and it's like that's kind of like a huge What's the word I'm looking for? What am I trying to say here? It's a big difference, right? It's a big difference from being pretty much the well-known starter to being benched, right? Especially from a player from a player coming back from the injury. Whereas now it's like, okay, I know my role is going to be coming off of the bench, be el revulsivo, like we say in Spanish, and so I need to do the best I can within this role to help out this team, right? I'm not sure if you agree or you kind of disagree in some aspects. What do you think, Jacob?
Oh yeah, I think definitely. Well, I think it goes back to what I said, especially for Wilmer Jr. I think this is his spot, meaning this is where he belongs. He might not necessarily at this moment belong as a starter because he got that starting job. He wasn't necessarily as successful as coming off the bench. I don't know if that's because it lit a fire under him or what. But as well as, yeah, Wilmer Cabrera's message finally getting behind the team. And that's a really, really good thing. And again, this game for the whole team and not just Wilmer Cabrera was such an improvement. We're going to look at stats, but again, it just showed how much better this team was compared to other games that they've been playing this season.
Mm-hmm.
Even, yes, on the 2 goals scored past 90 minutes, that team was still really good. And a player that I want to highlight real quick, I know we're not even remotely close to it, but Eric Pimentel, have to give him credit. You did exactly what you needed to do, and that was not to get a red card and try to close the game out. Yes, you didn't necessarily close the game out, but you didn't try and kill a guy on the field. And that's really just meaning cleaning him out with a challenge.
So it's like for you, it's like you didn't help us, but you didn't hurt us. So
exactly, good job. Yeah, that's your role. Besides now next step, help out in a more positive way. If you have to make a tactical foul, make a tactical foul. That's fine. But don't hurt the team is all I ask in the way that you have.
Now, to be fair, he is coming off of an injury, or at least that's what I feel that's what I got out of Wilmer Cabrera's press conference.
Yeah.
He didn't exactly specifically say, but I feel like that's kind of like that was kind of the idea, because talking about the situation with Frank Nodarse, right? And then where it's like, and that's how it usually is, right? Where whenever there's the players coming back from an injury, you start and they're ready to take the field. He always starts them in the bench, and then just give him minutes to get him progressively back to 100%, and then maybe he's ready. He gets the starting position. Whereas you've seen it when it's because of suspension or anything else like that, where it's not because of an injury. They serve the suspension, and the player comes back.
I figured it out, Edson. I figured it out.
What?
Yes, it was technically an injury. That's because this man was not able to practice with the club, because I'm sure Wilmer Cabrera himself benched him. Now, this is all, this is all a theory of mine.
Everybody get your tinfoil hats on.
Think about it just for a second. I know that's probably not true, but there is a small 2%. I will give myself 2%, just like 2% milk. I will give myself a 2% possibility that that's exactly what happened after the real suspension was done. He potentially was put on the bench for practice and then not in the starting lineup. Therefore, once he was through, he had to get back to fit level. And that's why he was only starting off on the bench. Crazy theory, I know, but who knows at this point. That's all I wanted to say on that.
So I want to give a huge shout out, obviously, to Harry Austin. He says, hello, RGV. Man City looked great, right, Edson? Well, I did not see Erling Haaland. And it was a good defense.
Sorry.
Real Madrid, as always, they're gonna win it at Etihad, and we're gonna be finalists, and we're gonna go to get another Champions League
Back to
and
back would be crazy.
and just piss off the culerdos, the Barcelonista fans. Mike says, "What a dumb way to lose." Yes, well, we will talk about that. What's up, Mike? He said, "Remember I said I think we need to sit him out for he can find that dog in him again." That was Mike. Yes, I do remember him saying that in the chat multiple times, going back about Wilmer Jr.
Yeah,
but let's take a look. Obviously, we haven't given out the starting 11, which is you had obviously on goal, you had Tyler Derrick. In the defense, you've had Jonathan Ricketts, Wahab Akwe, Gabriel Benitez, and Tomás Ritondale. All right, that was your back four. Then in the middle, you had Gringo Torres, Juan David Cabezas, and Taylor Davila. Davila being a little bit more of the offensive-minded player. You could say, looking at the team's average position, you could say that they were playing, and I think you mentioned it, Jacob or Ray. I don't remember exactly who mentioned it when we were at the press box. But yeah, it did seem at times like it was some sort of 4-3-3 with one defensive midfielder and two central midfielders, with more of the back and forth kind of thing with Gringo and Taylor Davila. So that's kind of what you see. And then up on top, you had, like I said, Robert Coronado as your left winger, Cristiano Francois as your striker, pseudo number 9, and of course with Ricky Reese as more of that left winger, but with a whole lot more sacrifice, as we mentioned many times in previous episodes, a lot more sacrifice in coming down to help Jonathan Ricketts defend, and vice versa, Jonathan Ricketts with more of a tendency to kind of help Ricky Reese out on the attack, right? So that was what we saw out of RGV on Friday, right? And right off the bat, like the team looked really, really good in that high press. Really, New Mexico United looked really, really lost out there, outside of that, attempt that was cleared out by Gabriel Benitez, which, by the way, I forgot to record that highlight. I'm surprised that didn't even make the highlight reel. Let me double check. It is, but we'll talk about that later. But right off the bat, as I mentioned, RGV FC kind of pushed New Mexico into their own box. They kind of choked them with the high pressure. And so let's take a look at some of the videos, some of the highlights that I did want to kind of show. So, for example, this is in the 3rd minute, right? And this is where you will see some of the high pressure that Warren Cabrera has always wanted to emulate on this team. We saw it last year. We saw it the year before. And we kind of saw glimpses of it this year, but though it wasn't that, I guess you can say it wasn't that effective at times. It felt like there was a lack of coordination at the moments of when to press, when to kind of hold back, and kind of save your strengths, for the 90 plus minutes. But right off the bat, like I mentioned, you see this high pressure. Where New Mexico is trying to gain control of the ball. They try to pass it back, and then Ricky Reese goes up and takes advantage of that terrible pass by, who was it, number 15? Let me double check. By number 5. Tries to pass it back to his defender. Ricky Reese gets the 50-50, and then Taylor Davila goes inside the box, gets the cross, trying to find Cristiano Francois, but it goes a little bit too far behind. There's a little bit of miscoordination right there when they expect, right? Because you can see Taylor Davila, he's not really looking at where he's going to pass it, right? So he was expecting Cristiano Francois to not run way towards the 6-yard box. He's expecting in between the 6-yard box and the penalty spot, and so that's where he puts the ball, but Cristiano went a little bit too far ahead. The ball goes right behind. And then there's a lack of communication here between Robert Coronado and Cristiano Francois. Cristiano Francois tries to go for that ball, and he ends up crashing between Robert Coronado, or with Robert Coronado, who was coming straight towards the ball. Had a better opportunity to, had he gotten into squarely into the ball, probably could have taken a first-time shot right in front of goal. Maybe that could have been the first goal in the 4th minute. But I think it's that pressure of Cristiano not having a good season, trying to prove something. And I know Cristiano kind of mentioned something along those lines in the post-game press conference, him and Wilmer Jr. as well, where he wants to prove that he can do it, that he can be that he can, be the player to play the striker position, to score the goals, to create the opportunities. And a lot of the times that kind of all of that kind of fogs up your mind, right? Yeah. You don't really analyze it exactly at the moment. Okay, I got a teammate coming that's going to be right in front of goal. Let me, stop running and allow him to get the ball, or kind of play as a screen, to try to avoid for the defender to get there first, kind of thing. Even if it means, maybe causing a foul in the referee's eyes, but at least, you're out there to help out your teammate. Whereas it seems to me that Cristiano had a little bit of tunnel vision trying to get to the ball, never realized that Robert Coronado was coming in from behind, and kind of messed up the play right there for RGV FC, which ended up being, as you can see, a corner kick.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that, of course, you're going to see. It's a player trying to create a little bit too much, in a sense. And it happens. Of course, yeah, you get that tunnel vision. Well, like you said, he wanted to prove something. He wanted to prove that he could be the one to score that goal. And yes, you have help coming from the back. But at times, I mean, you're a player. You're also a young player. You're gonna want to go for goal. You're the striker. You haven't scored. You want to take that shot, even though you have help coming from it. Yeah, sometimes it's not the best option. Thankfully, it happened to be a corner, and I mean, oh well. Our RGVFC are not known to, of course, score many corners, but I mean, it's better than going back the other way.
Giveaway that ends up with a counter. Yeah,
Mhm.
I get what you're trying to say. So then immediately after that, just a couple of minutes later, this is going to enter into the 6th, 7th minute. Once again, you see another example of the high pressure, even though the camera angle it doesn't really help for the analyzation. But yeah, you can see right there, you got 3 players coming up to the New Mexico United player trying to take the ball away. You had Jonathan Ricketts, Juan David Cabezas, Ricky Reese, and even Taylor Davila was around that area. You can see the responsibility of Juan David Cabezas as an interdefensive midfielder to go up against number 11 to try to dispossess him. Doesn't fully dispossess him, but it allows the ball to get away from him, and that allows Taylor Davila to come in and swoop the ball back for RGVFC. I like I guess you can see the first time touches that you will see right here. Cristiano to Juan David Cabezas, back to Cristiano Francois, and Cristiano Francois with a first time touch towards the goal. Which, how does that help? The fact that, you've got to take advantage that Alex Tembak, as the goalkeeper, he's going from left to right, trying to follow the play. And if you strike it first time, he's going to have to fight against the change of momentum. Right. If you wait to take a touch before shooting, then you give the goalkeeper time to reset himself in order to react to where the ball is going. But obviously, you can probably see from highlights and all of that, you could see that this was a huge weight off the shoulders for RGVFC. Just the way that they celebrated. Jacob, you took a picture in that moment of the players celebrating, and really looked like Juan David Cabezas was almost crying, of happiness as he was hugging Cristiano Francois. that he finally was able to score a goal for RGV FC.
Yeah, yeah, the jubilation. Basically, I think that's the best way to put it as well for Francois scoring that goal. And it seems like just from that picture alone, I kind of want to explain it even for just the viewers that are listening, and of course the viewers here on YouTube. It's the same way because we're not showing it. Listeners on Spotify and all the podcast platforms, and the viewers on YouTube still want to explain it. It's just, yeah, it was such jubilation. You go back to where I took the first picture, and yeah, it looks like, JDC is almost crying. You see Robert Coronado coming in from behind, hugging, and then one more hugging off my left side on that photo. Almost seemed like they're also crying too. And I mean, you can tell once in the press conference. I know Francois said a lot about his game, and still saying that there's so much that needs to improve from himself and just the team. Was also just a really cool thing of just right off the bat, right off the get-go, you could tell this guy can easily become a fan favorite for RGVFC, and is such a locker room favorite right off the start. I understood so much from his presence inside that locker room of why that picture, or from the press conference, of why that picture was so special and why everybody was so happy that he scored, besides it being his first USL goal and things like that. So very, very special moment, just a fantastic finish. And I mean, it was a perfect quote from him too. I forget what exactly he said, but it was basically, he broke down the play perfectly from his point of view off of that goal. When I asked him the question, it's just said, "Oh, what did you see from that goal?" Getting your first, of course, USL goal. Basically, it was kind of the question. He explained that so well, and it just, I mean, perfect of what this team is, what this team we felt was before game number one, with that high pressure tactic from Wilmer Cabrera, and everybody seeming so in tune. This is what we wanted from game number one. Did not get it, but now it seems so refreshing to see that style of play from RGVFC.
Look, I'm gonna be honest. It's gonna take a whole lot more than one game for me to be convinced that Cristiano Francois is a real deal. I'm just gonna say it.
Okay.
I mean, it's a good, it's a step in the right direction, yeah. But for me to right off the bat say, "Oh, because of this game, he's gonna be a fan favorite," no, he's still got a long way to go before that ever happens. I think, first of all, I think a lot of fans right now are really frustrated, that the results aren't coming in, that up to that point that our strikers couldn't score, right? Including myself, from the fan point of view and of course the analytical point of view. It's just frustrating to see. Yes, it's a good step in the right direction. I think we're starting to see a little bit more of stability, like I said, from the formation and what he wants Cristiano Francois to do, what his capabilities, his characteristics mostly, will help Wilmer Cabrera's play style and tactics. And I think we're seeing some of the fruits. But then again, like I mentioned, it is New Mexico. New Mexico has been playing terrible, outside of their home. And really, as like I said in the post game reaction, I want to see this against tougher opponents.
Oh yeah.
And until I see that, then we saw glimpses of the defense against Monterey Bay. So defensively, up to the 90th minute of this game, I really was not worried. I was not worried about it at all. And honestly, I'm not really that worried in the future either. I know we're going to be talking about what happened at stoppage time once we get to that point. But even besides that, I do feel like it's more of the exception than the rule from a defensive standpoint. My biggest issue is there's more bad from the offense than good. So I need this to be consistent in order to kind of break away from that norm of not being a very effective offense, right? So I guess we have to be a little bit patient. But for me to start, popping fireworks and all of that because of this game, no, not yet. At least for me, no.
What do you want? 100% passing, Edson? 84% is pretty dang good.
I'm not.
We
No,
committed
don't
15 fouls in that
exaggerate
whole thing and one yellow card,
No,
dude.
what
This
I'm saying.
aggression's good.
No, what I'm saying is replicate this performances most of the games. Because what good is it going to be when you can only replicate it once every 10 games, right? It's kind of like a Luis Quiñones from Tigres.
Oh,
Yes, he's good, but he plays well once every 5 games, right? And so that's what I'm trying to get at. If we can replicate this on a consistent basis, I'm not expecting every game for them to be like hardcore, right? No, but if we can replicate this against tougher opponents and be very consistent, where they can actually, create this kind of danger, then I'm going to be convinced.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
okay. Yeah.
I hope everybody understands what I'm trying to get. I'm not trying to bash or just to be negative for the ratings or anything like that. I just feel like this kind of performances need to be more consistent. And of course, going up against a team that was a complete failure for 90 minutes really doesn't help. Obviously, Toros need to take advantage of it. It's not their fault. Obviously, that's their job. Take advantage of terrible opponents and be able to perform. The question is, can they perform against tougher opponents? Defensively, they've been able to do that. Offensively has been the question so far, all of these games.
Okay. Fair for some of it. JT, I think he's becoming a fan again. Just be careful.
Why?
No. You're good. You're like, I'm not just bashing to bash because for ratings. That was it. No, I see where you're coming from. Yes, of course we want him to do well every single game. Let me just bear with me for a split second. How many games has Francois been on this team for, not counting friendlies? For regular season games, we got, how many games have we played? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, okay, U.S. Open Cup was the 5th one, but 5 regular season games, 6, 7, and then 8. That was his 8th game where he scored. I say that's a fair number of games for him to get adapted or used to the coaching style of Wilmer Cabrera, used to the playing style of Wilmer Cabrera, the teammates getting together. We're not talking about, of course, when we play Memphis 901 at home. And yes, Mike, 3-0 loss is still worse than a 2-2 draw, because at that game, the players were so upset with each other, they decided to quit playing when the 3rd goal happened. I know there was other things going on at that time for Mike Reyes. Sorry about that little shot, but we all know that it was just a very strange 3rd goal, and me looking up and seeing the Stampede getting escorted out. But besides that whole thing, it was just that to me was a weird game in itself. And with those 3 goals being scored on, that looked very terrible, and how disjointed and disconnected this team was. Then they come on the road to Monterey Bay FC. They couldn't necessarily score a goal, and that, was upsetting, of course. But they still looked pretty decent, even though Tyler Derrick saved them out of a couple of issues, out of a couple of chances for Monterey Bay FC to take a 2-goal lead. Correct. Because in that game, that could have been 2-0. And so what I'm trying to get at is that a couple of those players that hadn't scored a goal yet, including Wilmer Cabrera Jr., I know that we'll talk about his goal in a second, it's still one of those situations where they still had to get adapted. They still had to get used to their roles. They still needed to burn that fire, in a sense, with them, of saying, hey, look, I'm not happy of where I'm at. And it felt like those players weren't happy of where they were at too. And it was a good showing from him. And yes, I want him to do very well at San Diego Loyal, coming up on Saturday, May 13th,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy to me that this game is on Saturday and we have media days on Friday, Edson, for RGV FC. Just FYI that there will be some cool little pressers probably released from shout out South Texas Border Sports. So probably be there to cover that at least virtually, if anything. But my whole point is, yeah, I want that team to do the same thing at San Diego Loyal SC. I don't want Wilmer to change anything. Besides, when we get to added time in that game, and at home against the Tampa Bay Rowdies, against a champion team, to be fair. So, yes, in that sense, I get where you're coming from. But at that same time, it's just this was a step up, in my opinion, especially for Francois.
I get where you're trying to come from too, as well. It's funny that right now you've been a lot more positive about this team than I have. When usually you were the one that's a little bit more negative about the team than I ever was.
Exactly.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened over here. Well, I don't know what kind of
called you a fan.
And I don't know what kind of Twilight Zone alternate reality we're living at right now. It's funny because right after the Spider-Man No Way Home, like talk about the multiverse. Are we in a multiverse?
Exactly. We're in the Matrix, man. That's why.
But now let's take a look. You're probably not going to be able to see it on screen, right, guys? Because I totally forgot about this play, so I didn't record it to have it on display. But so right after RGV FC scores in the 7th minute. It was so close that New Mexico was going to get a quick equalizer right off the bat.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where I was like, no. And it was off a long ball, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So you knew that RGV FC was going to be the high pressure. Their defensive line was going to be high.
Yep.
So what can you use to counteract high pressure lines? The long balls. Yep. Exactly. Get rid of it quickly and look for it long out on the wing, right? Because you're going to catch, if you're able to outrun the defender, there's going to be a whole lot of space between you and the keeper, or between the defensive line and the keeper. Because unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know what you guys prefer your goalkeepers to be, but Tyler Derrick isn't a Manuel Neuer style or Nahuel Guzman style of sweeper keeper, which is a goalkeeper when the ball is in the opponent's half of the field, he's going to be outside of the 18-yard box, way outside the 18-yard box.
Yeah. Tyler
Derrick isn't a goalkeeper like that, right? So if the defense is very high, there's going to be a huge lagoon of empty space that if you time your run correctly, you're going to have all that space to run towards the goal, right? And that's exactly what happened here with New Mexico United. You get that ball over towards the winger, and then he passes it over to his teammate inside the box. He gets the shot past Tyler Derrick. It deflects off of Tyler Derrick, to be fair. But the fact is that Gabriel Benitez is able to react quickly, to run behind the ball and clear it before it enters into the goal. But that scared me because I was like, oh man, it's like, I just don't want it to be where like our defense had the typical brain farts that we've had the last 2 seasons where they'll play. You guys remember they played like the 90 minutes, like outstandingly, but just one moment of misconcentration and it all went to naught. They lost the clean sheet, or they lost the victory, the partial victory that they had, or even they ended up losing, right? You know, so, but thankfully, like I said, Gabriel Benitez was able to react and get that clear off a goal. And outside of that, there really was nothing for New Mexico United fans to kind of write home about. So I think the only other opportunity is this one right here that I'm showing y'all right now. And that is where, So in this play right here, this is off of a throw-in, right? So New Mexico has it out on the wing, and you kind of see where the defensive line for RGV is. Let me put it back. Come on. Okay. So you've got most of your defenders and midfielders out on the wing, because you've got 4 New Mexico United players that have moved over to that side of the field. So in order to counteract that, you've got Wahab Akwe, covering the striker, and then you've got Jonathan Ricketts, Juan David Cabezas, Ricky Reese, where the ball is, and it looks to be that it is Taylor Davila kind of keeping a close eye on the situation. And then over here, up more towards the middle, you only have 3 attackers from New Mexico United compared to 4 defenders. So you would think, okay, there's a numeric advantage. There's no way that they're going to get a play on in this particular play, right? Well,
Yep.
Wrong, right? If you continue the play, you start to see that your defenders stay at the border of the 18-yard box. Gringo Torres is just kind of, floating around, just taking a look at the play, but he never notices that he's got an attacker right behind him that is pretty much free. So that was Rivas. So Rivas ends up receiving the ball right outside the half moon, receives it, controls it, turns around, and takes the shot that unfortunately, goes way wide off of the mark. But you can see right there how you, Jacob, you're getting all pissed off at your defenders because of how easily they left that space for New Mexico to take advantage to try to find a shot from outside the box.
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating that we've seen time and time again when that kind of happens. You can't leave a lot of strikers with that much space. I think you and I both saw it so much this past weekend as well. Just for a quick example, this past weekend, I'm just talking NWSL soccer real quick. Lynn Williams had so much space outside of the box, takes the shot with a broken right forearm once again. It takes the shot, bottom left corner, back of the net. Portland Thorns, Olivia Moultrie takes a shot, bottom left corner of the net, because she was given so much space. Same thing with the Portland Timbers, how they were able to take the lead for a split second with the 3rd goal against Austin, the fake Portland, Austin FC, bottom left corner, back of the net. So again, with just not giving your striker so much space and trying to stay with them as tight as possible kind of works out. It has worked out in the past for RGV FC. And yes, I've gotten mad at them in the past because it's like, this isn't the first offense from these guys, from these players. Luckily, nothing happened of that long shot, but it's just, you got to stay on them. You got to stay on them more tightly instead of letting them take a far shot, especially from somebody who's known to score from outside.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what happened. That was actually their only shot in the first half. I think RGV in the first half outshot them 5-1. With that one for New Mexico being that off-target shot by Rivas, and in the end RGV having the goal, a outside the box shot from Ricky Reese, and one off-target shot by Taylor Davila, and 2 block shots, one from Gringo Torres and the other one from Jonathan Ricketts, right? Mm-hmm. So now we move on to the next video. Which one is it? Okay, so this is now in the second half, guys, right? So this is, I believe, the only other shot in the 90 minutes of regulation that New Mexico was able to muster against RGV. Like, honestly, New Mexico brought nothing to the table. And I said that in the post-game press conference. New Mexico offensively and brought nothing to the table. Yeah. To be able to say that, they're going to be a danger for RGV's defense, right? Mm-hmm. And I just realized that I didn't even record Wilmer Jr.'s goal either. But anyway, I'll show that right now. I'll find a way to show it. So you have over here a play where New Mexico has the ball out on the wing with who is it? I'm trying to remember who that player is, and obviously not Josh Suggs. It might be Yearwood. Don't quote me on that. But we go into the situation, right, where you see Ricky running down to kind of help defend. So this player has the ball. He's dribbling that ball, and Ricky follows him all the way through. Ricky follows him all the way on the inside, but that defender from New Mexico was a whole lot faster than he was, right? So unfortunately, you go into the situation where Jonathan Ricketts kind of thought that Ricky had it, so he didn't really put himself in a position where if he were to get past Ricky, Ricketts was there to kind of help, take the baton and help with the defense. So he was able to outpace Ricky and get the cross over to Rivas. Takes the first time shot, but it goes straight towards the hands of Tyler Derrick. And like I said, that was it for the night for the 90 minutes by RGV. Honestly, there really wasn't much to talk about in that aspect.
Yeah. Besides, of course, the goal from Cabrera Jr. is just one thing that I want to mention right before halftime. Yeah. I've seen it happen before with RGV FC. They felt happy with a 1-0 lead. They wanted to get to halftime, but I felt like there could have been at least one more attack, and they just played it around the middle. They had a little bit of time and just passed back and forth around midfield instead of trying to go for one more attack. Would have liked to see one more attack. But that's also me just being a little bit greedy. But at that same time, I felt like not the pressure was off, but from New Mexico United, their guard was a bit down with them being down by one goal, trying to press up. And if RGVFC could have taken just a bit of advantage and tried to play for one more last shot, potentially on target before the first half, we could have been looking at a 2-0 lead, but maybe that's not what they wanted to do before halftime and getting that 2-goal advantage into the second half. But that's just one thing that I wanted to bring up real quick because it kind of frustrated me, but that's just me personally not necessarily liking what I was seeing. But again, it's normal for a team to not necessarily press right before halftime and try to go for a goal.
Yeah. So now we look at the goal by Wilmer Cabrera Jr., right? So RGV has control of the ball. They're passing it, quick first touches. Ricky Reese gets fouled right at the midfield line, but the ball lands towards Victor Davila. Now, see, this is important that we have to see. So New Mexico is left with 3 players out back. Taylor Davila is going from the right wing towards the middle. And I want to say that's Cristiano, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or I think at that point that might have been Duilio. Let me double check over here. I think at that time the goal was scored by Wilmer Jr. in the 73rd minute. Gringo Torres was subbed out by Frank Lopez. That was Frank the Tank, Frank Lopez. Okay, so Frank Lopez is running out closer towards the right wing. And yet somehow New Mexico, when they're defending, they left all 3 center backs in the middle. Look at number 33. Look at his, that's 33 is Swartz. Look at Swartz. Knowing well that he's got 2 defenders next to him, which are Ryden and 16, which is Seymour. Knowing well that there's already 2 defenders for the 2 attackers that are right there, he maintains his focus on where the ball is, and he never realized that Wilmer Jr. had made the run behind him. So what happens is that Taylor Davila sees this, that Wilmer's all alone out on the left, passes it over to him, and he just slots it past Alex Tembakis towards the goal. And look at just how excited Wilmer Jr. is for scoring the goal, right? But it's those moments. It's those moments of bad decisions by New Mexico United, where you realize that really New Mexico was terrible, offensively and defensively. And good job by Wilmer Jr. to take advantage of those situations and being able to get a goal in this 2023 season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he slots it home. It was really nice. It was well done with the finish. His hug to his dad was perfect. And I mean, it lit a fire under him finally getting that goal. I mean, everything was perfect in that exact moment. So that was really, really cool to see. And the best thing as well was not only does he get that goal, but it showed life from this team that we haven't seen. It showed that excitement from this team that we haven't seen. Yes, one game, whatever. I expect it to happen potentially in San Diego, because the San Diego team probably still thinks that RGV FC are bad. But continuing to this game and that goal, it made a big old difference in the way that team, the way that RGVFC responded, getting 2 goals from 2 players that hadn't scored at all. And it's just a simple thing of remember that feeling, or do you know that feeling to, you remember that feeling from scoring that goal? You want to feel it again? Score more goals. It's easier, of course, said than done, but it's just that same way of it. And it's definitely, I can't predict the future or anything like that, but I expect that to be the Wilmer Cabrera that we see, Wilmer Cabrera Jr. and Wilmer Cabrera we see throughout the rest of the season, with just the way that the tactics worked, the way that they were able to place both forwards in the perfect positions to get those goals. Yeah, you sub off Davila.
So let's talk about the substitutions.
It was Davila for Cabrera Jr., right? Wait,
no,
I'm completely wrong. No. I'm wrong.
So when they brought in Wilmer Jr., he was substituted. They substituted Gringo Torres out.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was Gringo Torres. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, because
let's talk about it right before this goal, because this was a major thing, and we saw how frustrated right before this. And I'm sure it was passion by Gringo Torres because he wanted to play well, and he didn't necessarily like the substitution at the moment, which is completely understandable. You're upset. You think that you deserve to be playing more. That's the way that athletes are. I like that enthusiasm from Gringo Torres, because it seemed weird. But he also was able to give Wilmer afterwards a little pat on the back or whatever, shook his hand or something like that. That was okay.
Yeah, but there was a particular play that I know I told you.
He was mad. Yes, that's right. He was.
Yeah, so it was a play where I think it was Robert Coronado. Robert Coronado had the ball out on the left wing, and he had pressure from New Mexico's defense. And then right behind him was Gringo Torres, and then a little bit more towards their side of the field was Gabriel Benitez. So this player, by RGV player, I don't remember, like I said, I don't remember if it was Robert Coronado or if it was Taylor Davila. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. But this player, instead of passing it to Gringo Torres, he passes back to Gabriel Benitez, right? Mm-hmm. And right off the bat, you see Gringo Torres getting pissed, right? And he starts, making this whole, whatever, something like that. And he never realized, or he actually realized at the last second, that Gabriel Benitez had passed the ball over to Gringo Torres, and had he not reacted as quick as he did after, kind of showing his displeasure, that would have been an easy, turn away for RGV that maybe New Mexico could have exploited. So that's where I was telling you, is like, man, I like Gringo Torres, but man, I don't like when you see that kind of attitudes
agree.
On the field. And then when he got substituted, right, a couple minutes after, you saw where he was pissed that he was coming off. And like you said, it's normal because he's a veteran. He's a player that always gets to gives his 100%. He said it in post-game press conferences. He never wants to be substituted. Those kind of players never want to be substituted out.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, the fact that he kind of understood at the end and made a gesture towards Wilmer's like, okay, I don't like it, but I understand and I respect your decision kind of thing. How many times have we seen players when they get substituted, they go and they ignore their coach. The coach is out there with his hand up to trying to shake him. He completely ignores him, leaves him hanging. And then goes and like kicks a water bottle or throws a towel. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he starts having these tantrums, right? We see that a lot in soccer. But I just thought it was interesting to point out that particular aspect about Gringo Torres. I'm not expecting him to kind of change. It just kind of caught my eye, right?
Yeah.
How he kind of had that attitude, but at the end he kind of understood, that at the end Wilmer's the ultimate authority when they're out there on their pitch, and they have to respect his decisions, whether we like them or not. And speaking on liking or not Wilmer Cabrera's decisions, let's talk about the substitutions that came in right before the 90th minute. So you talked about taking out Gringo Torres for Cabrera Jr. in the 64th minute. So in the press conferences, he talked about from the 85th minute plus making some substitutions that maybe he should not have made. And what's surprising is like he took full responsibility. If you guys have not seen the press conference video, be sure to check it out. It's on the Down in the Valley YouTube channel. By the way, thank you all for the support. I know that video of the press conference released 75 views. I want to thank y'all, as well as the press or the post game reactions also got up to 75 views. So thank you all for supporting those videos. Hopefully now that we've got more home games, we will be making a little bit more of that content because they're really fun to make, and it's all for you guys. But where I was getting at is that Wilmer mentioned that you had on the bench, you had Eric Pimentel and Frank Nodarse.
Yep.
On the bench, coming off of an injuries. And I know Ray and Facebook said that it was that Pimentel also had a slight knock. That's why he wasn't playing. So where I'm getting at is you have these veterans, experienced players on the bench. Well, a veteran and a player that was playing lights out as a center back too. So in theory, I get where Wilmer was coming from in bringing in these experienced players to kind of hold out this game with Eric Pimentel and Frank Nodarse. Where I disagreed was the positioning. Why? Frank Nodarse had been playing lights out this season at center back, and we've talked about it in previous episodes. With the substitution, he takes out Tomás Ritondale and Jonathan Ricketts, your outside backs, both of your outside backs. The logic would dictate that just like you moved Gabriel Benitez from the center back position out on the wing, where he has played before, to bring in Eric Pimentel alongside Wahabakwe, the logic indicated that you would find a way, maybe go back to playing a line of 5. You put Frank Nodarse as the center back and bring down, let's say, Robert Coronado, played him out on the right, someone that knows a little bit more about being an outside back. Heck, you could even switch Benitez and Coronado, right? You flip them over, you'll have, Benitez on the right and Robert Coronado on the left, which we've known him more playing in that position at RGV for RobCore. But what he ended up doing was he kept Frank Nodarse
Mm-hmm.
as an outside back for those remaining 15 minutes or 10 minutes. When I saw that, I was like, what are you thinking? Why? Number one, like I mentioned before, the best performance I've seen from Frank Nodarse has been a center back. Number two, the only other time that Frank Nodarse had played as an outside back was that game against Las Vegas, where Jonathan Ricketts tried to play, but he felt too sick to continue playing and had to be substituted. So he made the substitution and he brought Frank Nodarse out towards the outside back. But he's not really a player that is known to play that position. He's more to be at the center back, or maybe we've seen it other times as a center defensive midfielder, right? So now you're improvising. You guys, I know FIFA, the game, has very little to do with how reality works. But I think the point I'm trying to make, I think, can be help explain for those better. Those of y'all that have played FIFA at any point, especially Ultimate Team. If you guys have played Ultimate Team, you know how you guys, whenever you create your squad, you have these lines that go in between the players, which is supposed to represent the chemistry, right? Where if you have players that are the same nationality, or they play in the same team or league, or they're in their correct position, well, all of that gives you more chemistry points. If you put in, let's say, a center back or center defensive midfielder in a left back position, that's not going to give you a lot of chemistry points. In fact, that'll take some away. What happens? It was like, well, I'm not used to playing with you as an outside back. You're not used to playing the position as an outside back, and all of that affects the communication of the between the defensive line, right? So I was like, I know Ray was the one who was like, va a pasar la tragedia, so I put some of the blame on him, or actually, thanks Ross, #thanks Ross for us losing those 2 points. But where I'm getting at is that though that decision by Wilmer Jr. to bring in those players, improvise them, to me, it felt like he felt too confident. I think I told Ray right after the game ended, I said, this is because it felt that Wilmer felt overconfident about him winning 2-0, when we know that in soccer, 2-0 is a very delicate, margin of victory to be confident about. We say in Spanish, el 2-0 es el marcador más engañoso, right? And Wilmer admitted it himself in the press conference. He said, I felt like I talked to Jerson. Jerson told me, okay, play these players, bring in those players so they can get some minutes and kind of get back into a rhythm. And that's another thing. They're coming off of an injury, so that is also something that is affected. Now, when I was talking to my dad, he was like, well, you also have to understand that maybe Ritondale and Jonathan Ricketts were gassed, and they probably were, right? But I think at the end of the day, I just wasn't really 100% convinced that. Actually, I'm flat out disagreement with that decision of making those substitutions.
Yeah, in the end, it didn't make any sense for him to really make those substitutions. But as you pointed out, there are a couple of reasons why. But I think Coach Wilmer Cabrera explained it perfectly. I don't believe now, after what he said, that was because the players were necessarily gassed. Now, they could have been tired for sure. But in the end, it is also, you are up by 2 goals. Why not give players a chance, even though it may not necessarily need to happen at this moment? Of course, we talk about not too long ago as well, Frank Lopez, another player that RGV FC got back. He needed to get some minutes. Yes, it might have been in blowout games or anything like that, but he was able to get 15 minutes worth of game time against Monterey Bay, or Memphis 901. And it goes into that whole category of, yeah, 2-goal lead is good. It's not at all anywhere near as safe as it could have been or can be. But yeah, no, I'm not going to defend Wilmer Cabrera for making those substitutions. He already basically told us that, it was his fault for that loss with those
Yeah,
substitutions.
because
And
he
it's
himself
true.
said he himself said, I had no need in Spanish, but he said I had no need to take out Tomas. I had no need to take out Jonathan, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Why am I mentioning all of this context? Okay, so let's take a look at the video. So this is the complete moment. This is stoppage time, right? This is the moment of stoppage time. The fourth official is mentioning how much time it's going to be added on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, guys, if you guys are in the chat, give your thoughts, man. I know it's been kind of dead in the chat, honestly. So, and I know that you guys have opinions on it. So take advantage of this opportunity, right?
Can't wait till Costless Titan talks, and also until Mike talks, because I got their tweets up right now. Him saying this is not we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's right after you talk about these two interesting facts about this game.
Yeah. Okay. So at the end of the game, Wilmer also mentioned that the team fell back. Instead of pressuring high, they bunkered down. And they allowed New Mexico United to come up and corner them into their own half. So what happens here, right? So there's a long ball trying to go towards Frank Lopez that gets called for offside, right? So you know that they're high up. So they're going to have most of their players in your own net, right? So couple of things here. New Mexico in their, what's the word I'm looking for? In the pressure of trying to find the goal that puts them back in the game, they were going to play quickly. And you saw it right there. They just, when they got the ball right after they called the offside, despite they played it quickly, right? They don't want to lose and they don't want to lose time, right? So New Mexico has the ball. You see Ricky, getting some pressure. They pass it all over to the outside where Frank Nodarse meets the player. Frank Nodarse fouls the player. Okay, everything is good there. Now, look at Frank Nodarse. Nodarse commits the foul, and instead of going at the ball, grabbing it, kind of like take his time to give the ball back to New Mexico, or even take a look at this. New Mexico player grabs the ball, right? And passes it quickly. Look at Frank Nodarse. He has completely taken himself out of the play because he's not even paying attention to what's going on. You would think that when you're in a situation like that, where you're being cornered, when time is running out, and you need to hold on to a score, you're going to have to milk the clock as much as possible. How do you do this? You get up in front of the goal, and I mentioned it at the post-game reactions video. Get in front of the ball. Don't let him restart the game quickly. What is that going to do? You're going to force the referee to come over, maybe give you a card. Okay, you don't have a yellow, you just came in. Maybe give you a card that's going to burn a couple of seconds. But how is this going to help? Well, you're going to force the referee to blow the whistle, go and move you away from the ball, and then he tells the attackers, you cannot restart the game until I blow the whistle for you to restart the game. And that's going to burn a lot more minutes. But what ends up happening is that Frank Nodarse does none of that. And so New Mexico restarts the game. And Frank Nodarse is not even looking. He's not even really. You see Ricky Ricky is paying attention to the ball. And if you see him, he's pointing that way. He's expecting Nodarse to see him and say, okay, there's a player that is out on the wing. I need you to go get him. And Nodarse should go over there and put pressure on that player. But at that time, Nodarse is still with his back towards the ball. So he never notices this. So New Mexico passed it over to the wing, and Nodarse, he's inside his box. He is nowhere near the wing where he needs to be. And that gives this player the liberty to receive, send the cross, put it into the back of the net. Now, another thing. Inside the box, you're going to be overloaded by New Mexico. Okay? They've got numbers forward. Why is that relevant? I'm going to move my camera. But you have out on the far post, you've got 3 New Mexico players against 2 RGV players. One of them being your winger, Wilmer Jr. And that allows this player to be free to pick up that rebound by Tyler Derrick and put it in the back of the net. So that's just the first goal right there. Right?
Yeah. Word. You basically said it. I mean, it's true. It was a frustrating way for that first goal, to happen. In the sense, it's just, and Tyler Derrick could only do so much in that first goal because, I mean, I'm right there. You're up at press box level. You're looking down at the goal. I'm at patio level. I'm looking straight at the goal as it's happening. And, from what I can tell, it's just one of these situations. Let me paint you the picture of what I also saw from my perspective as well. A lot of what you said, but also what was also going on. I have Alfredo behind me, if I'm not mistaken. A couple of people down there, Channel 5, and whatever. And one of the personnel were gone to the bathroom for a second, and even the photographer didn't even notice that that goal had gone in either. This is how crazy it was, and you just see a lot of space almost inside the box too, for goal number 1, and all the way down past the final third, almost 1-on-1 versus the keeper is what it felt like for a second. Tyler Derrick dives one way, makes the save, pass that one away, but it goes right back to the feet, just like you said, hits the goal in the back of the net. Very, very frustrating the way that it happened. And I remember it perfectly of what Tyler Derrick was basically saying. He was mad at, of course, the defense. He's like, come on, focus up, things like that, of course, in a little more of vulgar tone, but it's true. It was just upsetting the way that first goal even happened. And it was like, okay, it's just 1 goal. We still have 3 more minutes. Well, most likely RGV FC can survive those 3 more minutes from that first minute.
But you ended up swinging the momentum towards New Mexico.
New Mexico, to give them an opportunity. It's very, very true that goal swung the momentum 180 degrees. Not even just 90 degrees. It was a 180-degree turn right there.
Yeah, definitely. And right at that moment, I was like, oh, here we go again. It's going to be one of those nights, right? So, so my dad says, rule number 1, do not turn your back on the ball. That is correct.
Yep.
You always have to pay attention to what is happening on the play, So that was it. That was it for goal number 1. But New Mexico was going to keep on pushing. And immediately after, you look at the high pressure from New Mexico, something we had never seen in a long time. You force Tyler Derrick to clear the ball out, trying to find, somebody up there. Once again, another, I want to say it was another offside at the moment. And then New Mexico has the momentum of the ball, or has possession of the ball. Long ball over towards the wing. Now, was that Robert Coronado? No, Benitez. They look similar because of the beard. They look similar from far away. So Benitez, he's already in charge of somebody, but number 36, which is Robles Garcia. So Robles, I'm assuming that he is a defender, an outside back. So he's all the way up, right? So he is going to be outnumbered, or they're going to outnumber Benitez out on the wing. Why is that important, right? Because Benitez lost the air duel and that ball lands towards Robles, right? And Benitez, I don't know if he was expecting, Robles to pass it off towards Hamilton, or what was his train of thought. Instead of pressuring Robles close and limiting and closing down his angles to get the cross, he stands far away, expecting, just waiting for Robles to see what he's going to do. And you see that nobody helps him out, right? You've got Robert over here. He's more towards the middle and there's nobody around him. Wilmer Jr., he's also out there on the wing. He's still high. Like he doesn't run back to kind of help Gabriel Benitez when he's outnumbered. Yeah. So what happens? You give Robles Garcia so much room to grab the ball, look up, and cross the ball over. Now, here's another thing. Inside the box, you've got 3 New Mexico players. Yep. Well, how about we has 1? Frank Nodarce, he's not really marking anybody, even though he's got somebody close. Yeah. And there's somebody that comes in from behind, Kalen Ryden. Kalen Ryden is running from behind, from outside the box towards the inside. And because Frank Nodarce is following this guy, which I think is Rivas, because Nodarce is following Rivas, there is nobody guarding Ryden. So the cross goes towards Ryden. Now, this is a question that Shadow asked me on Twitter. How much of a blame does this fall on Tyler Derrick? Because that ball went through the 18, and instead of going to try to intercept that ball, he just followed it with his sight. We'll talk about that later. But what ends up happening is that I don't know if Tyler was expecting Nodarce. I don't know if he was expecting the ball to go out, there not being anybody over there, or if there was, that Nodarce was going to, or there was going to be somebody from his defenders, guarding that player. So he doesn't go for the ball. He lets it pass. He turns around and he realizes that Ryden is by himself. And by that time, it was hard to react. Rivas, who was the player that was being guarded by Frank Nodarce, is left all alone outside the 6 to just slot it in the back of the net. Mm-hmm. Just miscommunication. Why? Because Frank Nodarce is not used to playing as an outside back. And that caused a lot of communication issues that opened the door for New Mexico to get the equalizer in 2 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot went wrong on that play for sure. You go back to it, I don't think this falls on Tyler Derrick at all. And the reason being, you expect a defender to be there. You expect a defender to be marking their players like they're supposed to. And to just fall apart like that and leave players open, all of a sudden you see it one-on-one. Yes, you have to be ready for everything, but at that same time, it was just a collapse of the final third. I don't really feel like this is Derek's fault. Of course, he didn't end up saving it. So yes, I take it back. There is some blame on him because he's the final piece of the puzzle to try and save the defense from their mistakes. But at that same time, the defense had to do a so much better job right there. But again, miscommunication. But this is 5 extra minutes. And so before we get on with that, 90 minutes of that game was spectacular by this defense. For them to give up that almost fight right there. Yes, of course, there's different chemistry coming on into the field. It's still very, very much frustrating that it just was such a collapse in the final third for that final goal to happen.
Mm-hmm. So Mike says, "Nombre, this hurts more than the 3-0. Like, no mames. It was so bad the players didn't even come up to anyone." Dude, they were all heartbroken, dude.
They were heartbroken because they played such a good match for 90 minutes, and it showed how well this team improved. This is why, and he said it. Mike said it. So now I'm going to tell you why, Mike, directly. I'm going to look directly into this camera and tell you exactly why this was not a bad 3, or this is why it was not worse than a 3-0 loss. A 3-0 loss, the players did not care in that final goal to happen. You might not have seen it, but yeah, they let that goal go in all by itself and just continue to yell at each other in that game. And it was all just a dumpster fire from that get-go and them arguing. We saw in this game, we saw a lot more communication. We saw a lot more grit from this team, aggressiveness, and perfect play style in some points of that game before a little bit of mishaps. You know, when RGV FC scored that goal, the old RGV FC from that Memphis game would have let that goal on that goal line be scored on. There wouldn't have been a defender there. Instead, there was a defender there saving them from getting it tied up and switching the momentum back to New Mexico United. That was perfect, or not perfect, but that was good play from the defensive final third on that end. And then you look at going forward, you not only had somebody that hadn't scored score a goal, taking advantage of it, then you have a Wilmer Cabrera Jr. scoring a goal too. Very, very impressive. Again, RGVFC did not score any of those goals and just looked terrible throughout that game. This is why it doesn't hurt so much as that 3-0 loss, because this team got a point and are looking much better than they did 2 weeks ago from that game. And just, it is still a very good improvement. And you saw how much the players cared about that game, and they felt very upset on the field and, laid down because they were upset that they did not get the 3 points. We did not see that type of care in Memphis. So that's why it doesn't hurt so much, because I'm finally starting to see that care from this side, from that to me, I hadn't seen. Besides just from Tyler Derrick's press conferences after the games that RGVFC lost to at home before that game. That is why it does not hurt so much, is because this was a massive improvement, and we can see it from the stats. We can see the shots on target. We can see all of that. Yes, those 2 goals being scored, that was not only Wilmer Cabrera, of course, the defense kind of not gave up at all, but just the miscommunication was there in the end. That was the old RGVFC that we saw, but the new RGVFC was right on that brink. If we don't see those substitutions, we probably see 3 points. So that is why it is not as bad as the 3-0, or that is why it is not.
You also
3-0 loss.
Yeah, you also have to take into consideration that against Memphis, everything looked bleak because everything went wrong. You got dominated by Memphis at your home. They were the worst team of the USL Championship, and they came in and they made you dance. You ever seen those old westerns where the villain starts shooting at the hero's foot and I tell them, "Dance, MFR, dance," right? That's what Memphis looked like in that game. They were in complete control of the match. They made us look ridiculous. The players, it seemed like you mentioned, it seemed like they stopped caring, and all of that, there was no positive to take out of that game, to be honest. That's why that game hurt so much. That's why a lot of people were extremely frustrated about it, like even more. This game, you saw improvements. You saw glimpses of what RGV can be, but they didn't need to be more consistent about it, especially against better teams. Mm-hmm. That's why it doesn't hit me as hard. That's why I know someone also made a comment. I think it might have been Shadow too. It's like, oh, you guys look so calm about losing 2 points at home. Well, at the end of the day, if you look at it analytically, there were a lot of improvements that one moment of bad decision making by the coach, yes, it ruined it. We lost the 2 points. But there was so much to be hopeful about then against the game against Memphis. That's why it doesn't hurt me. It didn't hurt me as much compared to the Memphis game. I think we just, like I said, I hope that this continues.
Yep.
I hope that they're more consistent about it. I hope that this is just a flash in the pan and then we go back to being the same old RGV FC offense. That's where I would get frustrated, right?
Yes.
But there's a lot more hope of what we saw in this game than what we've seen in previous games, especially because of how better the offense looked. Mm-hmm. But yeah, honestly, I think that game was just this game against New Mexico. It was heartbreaking. Mostly because like my dad said, he says in the 2 games they missed technical movements and defensive principles. And Mike says, no, it hurts, Jacob. 2 goals that late, no mames. If it was before the 90th, okay, cool.
No. You're wrong. Because
I don't want to say he's wrong. I don't want to say he's wrong because at the end of the day, it's like that's how he feels. Okay. And I get what he's. I mean, I understand what he's trying to say from the fan point of view, but you also have to realize from the analytical point of view, like
there's so much positive.
There's a lot more positive. There's a lot more positives in this game compared to the Memphis game.
Yeah, I understand 24 hours after the game, yeah, you feel down, but then afterwards, you got to wake up. You got to look at it and say, they could have been so much worse and it could have been so much better. But it also, at the end of the day, you have 2 players at least that showed up, that hadn't showed up really this season. Then you have so much that that they showed up. Again, it's just a team that showed up for the first time. I understand after the game, yes, disheartening, depressing for sure. And there is still so much work to be done. But in the end, this is the first time that even I feel that there's positives to take away from an RGV FC match at home. There were really not a lot of positives to take away from the start of the season. And
it also shows that, hey, maybe these guys might actually show why Wilmer Cabrera showed him as an option, because all this time, like for example, Cristiano Francois, I've been like, he's terrible. Like, get him. Like, why is he here? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he really wants to show why he's here. He wants to take advantage of the situation. I still think I'm not going to throw fireworks over him scoring a goal, but I just hope that these performances continue from here on out. But yeah, that was the matchup against New Mexico United. It was heartbreaking, but there's positives to look forward to. Now the big trial is going to be this upcoming match, because you are going to be facing San Diego Loyal at home, or on the road actually. And San Diego Loyal is currently in second place in the Western Conference behind Sacramento Republic.
Yeah.
5 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws, goal difference of +5, 17 points.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't really have time to look at the analytics of San Diego Loyal, and we're about almost time to finish this show. But what are your predictions for this upcoming game against San Diego?
Yeah. I mean, my prediction is, and this isn't even bold, this is just my prediction. This positive note of this game really hangs on with RGV FC. We see a great performance from RGV FC on the road in San Diego. Remember, San Diego right now they are really good, but they're not necessarily the freshest due to them playing a couple more games at RGV FC, whether or not that's Open Cup. So I say RGV FC shocks San Diego, late stunner, 1-0. Regular prediction.
So somebody on Facebook pretty much said the same thing I said about the second goal. He says, no, Darce was totally absent. Then just before they scored, Ricky had to tell him to cover the guy that crossed the ball in. He just wasn't there. Why? Because he was facing with his back towards the play. And that is a huge no-no. Just like my dad said, he says, as a defender, you force, if you need to move to the back of the box, have a teammate stand in front of the ball, then you move back. Cannot keep your back behind the goal. And then regarding Benitez in that second goal, he said, as a defender, you force the offensive player your way. You do not wait for his to react to his action. You take action first. Kind of like Noah Gregson and Ross Chastain. You make the first punch because otherwise you probably may not get that, be able to get the reaction punch in. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Ross. But I think for me, man, so San Diego doesn't have Open Cup to worry about anymore. They didn't play this week in the Open Cup, so they're going to be fresh.
Oh, they are.
They beat Orange County SC last Saturday. They beat them 2-1. However, they are going to be missing, and I told you before we started the live stream, they are going to be missing Nick Moon because of a red card. So, and according to USL Tactics, he's a very key player in the midfielder. So that is going to be a huge loss for them in this game against RGV. Now, historically, I know last season we were kind of in the same boat where we didn't think that they were going to do anything against San Diego, and RGV ended up getting a draw over there at Torero Stadium. So hopefully we can get the same kind of result here. But I'm going to be honest, I'm going to go with the 2-1 loss for RGV as my regular prediction.
Dude, it's just getting weird now. Why am I being the positive one?
I don't know. I'm just I want to say I think before, despite the fact that these past years, they continuously been proving us wrong of my pessimism and all of that. How many times have I said, oh, this team is not going to make the playoffs, and they end up making the playoffs some one way or another. But I'm very reluctant to. I don't want to come off as wishy-washy, like, oh, we lose the game, oh, we're the worst team in the world, and then we win a game, we're like, oh, this is the best team, or give us the championship already. No. I mean, it's not the case. It's just like they need to be more consistent. But this is going to be a good trial of fire for RGV going up against San Diego Loyal. So bold prediction.
Haven't done this in a while. Well, hold up, actually.
Yeah. So in the meantime,
I would say, go for it.
In the meantime, Mike says 1-1 tie for his regular prediction.
Okay, I need to search up two things.
All right. In the meantime,
one thing.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll give my bold prediction. I'm gonna go with a 4-0 win by RGV.
Okay.
That's bold. Yeah, it is pretty bold, but I think it's going to be one of those games where San Diego is just going to kind of lose their cool in a way where it's like they're like, I know you made the statement before. You said San Diego's probably expecting the same old RGV that started the season.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be one of those games where RGV is going to surprise them. Then that's going to bring in some desperation into San Diego Loyal, where it's like, man, we were expecting the game to be easy. We can't even get past them, yada, yada, yada. And they start, forcing the ball, forcing turnovers, which causes yellows, causes reds. They end up losing their cool. And that opens up the possibility for Cristiano Francois Wilmer Jr. to continue to build up on what they started against New Mexico United, which opens up being up being a 4-0 win. That is why I think that could be a bold prediction, but still plausible in some way. But I'm just being hopeful.
Yeah. Bold prediction from me. Only 10 mile per hour winds from Southwest, so forget about that prediction. It's going to be 9 goals, 5-4 final RGV FC win, and both are playing with 10 men. But it's not the red card who you think for RGV FC. It is none other than Juan Davica Business gets the red. It's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So both playing with those 10 players, because both of them at the same time get sent off because they both hit each other.
Okay. Mike says 3-0 bold RGV, Wilmer 2 goals off the bench. Okay. I can see that happening.
Exactly. Yeah, I actually can see that happening. It's not that bold to me. Is that just me being a little, more optimistic? Sure. Why not?
But guys, that is going to be it for today. I want to thank y'all for the support, for everybody who watched. Mike, my dad, Alan, Carrillo, Harry. I understand that today is Mother's Day in Mexico, and a lot of people here in the Valley may celebrate it. So maybe a lot of people just weren't available to watch the stream. Don't worry about it, guys. The archive will be available on Spotify. The audio version is going to be available in the podcasting platform. We're going to try this week to actually be able to post the episode for the podcasting platforms. I know the last 2 weeks I haven't been able to do so. I just didn't have time. But you can always also watch the video archive on YouTube. So I hope to see y'all next Wednesday for another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. But before we go, don't forget to follow us at Down in the RGV on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course TikTok. And be sure to also follow us in all of our social media, on our personal social media. You can find me at Ochoa_8 on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook as well. Jacob, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter, JakeYoung456. Do a little bit of Twitch, The Overreacted Gamer, YouTube, The Overreacted Gamer. And yeah, real quick shout out to RGV FC Marketing. Again, they did a phenomenal job this past weekend with Toros Tacos Tequila. And one quick little story. It was really cool to see marketing, and whether or not it was the I don't know. It was just, they were very not intrigued, but friendly to the fans that showed up, whether or not that bought tickets from them specifically. But I saw that firsthand. One of the marketing directors or season ticket directors or whatever coming up to a fan and being like, yeah, y'all find your seats okay, and all this, as they were helping me find my media pass as well. So staff has been stepping up their game. It's been very impressive. And I mean, it's time Toros to win. Media's or marketing doing their best job, and just, yeah, shout out to them.
Well, guys, thank you all for your support. We'll see each other in the next week in another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. Have a good night.